on a Monday and just like cause so much mayhem. It's unreal because it's so much fun.
What are you gonna do? Throw your pen across the desk? I mean, across the hall or something like that? Or
No. I've already got my thing written out here for it. It's like, you know what I do Mondays is I pile on like 10 times more stuff.
Always.
And then I look and I'm like, this is cool. Like, and it's that I'm going to get through it. And that's why when DJ and I were originally kind of coming up with the names of the days of the week and what are we going to do for it? Mayhem Monday was that day. Like, that's the day where you want to, I don't know about you guys, but anytime you have a bad week, you sit there on a Friday night and you're like, I screwed the pooch this week. And, and Monday, I'm gonna get it Monday. Monday is my day. Right. And you want to come out and just create all this mayhem. So it was that's where it spawned from in my head, was that mayhem part of it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I would rather have that on a Monday than a Friday, any day of the week,
Yeah.
So I'll say good morning, Lisa. Good morning, everybody. Amazing.
Good morning. I didn't know if Lisa was going to be here. I know she's on a big business trip. So good for you if you're still getting up and meeting us up here.
Oh, she always knocks it out. I think it was like the Pack Expo or something like that. I saw her do, and I think the person she went with, I think won like 20 grand for their company. So congratulations. Awesome. Yeah, that's it's the power of positivity. The energy that Lisa's bringing to her friends and things like that. So, boys, what do we got today?
Got a little Mayhem Monday, buddy.
All right.
First, we got you're missing a few videos. You haven't clicked out. You haven't
it's
are you sleeping? Oh, you know what? It's the
sleep at the wheel, man.
Welcome to the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
Sorry, truth check. How many sweets have you had already, Ryan?
I'm like at least a pound of sweets in. Happy Diwali to everyone celebrating today.
I could tell because one eye is doing this.
Yeah. You should see my hands. Like it's actually funny. Like I've been distracted. I just got an email from one of the newsletters that I do, and they said, "Congrats, you're a billionaire." And I'm like, wait, what? So I got to read this offline from Matthew Blitzell group, so go from there.
Do I even need to be here right now? Hold on.
I know. I'm like, do I need to just swing the stream? And
did I just upgrade my podcast system?
Enjoy the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. It's been fun, guys. I'm out of here. Boys, how was the weekend, man? What'd you guys get up to?
It was good, man. I went to a West Point game. My nephew flew in from Utah, so it's nice, man. It was a good weekend. How about you guys?
I had a SWAT team come over of buddies and cleaned my garage. Got it ready for winter to get the sleds back in there and my wife's car in there, and then started packing up the backyard. And I'll tell you, lying down in bed on Saturday night, it was like, oh my gosh, like all the pain in the world was coming back from all sorts of different body parts that I haven't used since June. And Sunday morning, woke up, felt like I was in traction. I could barely even get out of bed, but you just keep going, and the old joints grease themselves, and then just I still got a bunch of organizing and stuff to do. When we packed up from the summer construction, it was kind of because I was trying to go right till the end to get stuff done, and then realizing it was like, okay, I've got energy that goes for an hour instead of 12 hours. We're done, and then it's like now just everything gets piled in the garage as opposed to put away properly because there was other things happening. But no, it was a really nice weekend. First 2 days where I actually didn't nap, was able to go through the day and still felt somewhat good.
Good. I was a little concerned when you said SWAT team. I was like, geez, what did you do now, man?
Yeah, no, not paintballing yet, but I can't wait to paintball again. But no, it was really good. It was really good. And you know what? It was it was nice for the first time, like, because all of my buddies were like, just tell me where you want this. Tell me where you want it. And like, it's a, when you're in the middle of that cleaning or in the middle of anything in that vortex, and you stand outside of it and look at it from a different angle, it really helps you see the whole picture. It's like kind of like a goalie. a goalie in hockey, when either you're on breakout or when the puck's coming in, the goalie sees the whole play, right? So he's yelling at his teammates saying, you know, go do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. He's behind you, he's behind you. And that was a really cool part about it. I'll wait for you guys to finish on your phones, don't worry.
Oh no, no. Well, we don't want to hear about winter cleaning, man. That should be boring.
You asked me what I did.
All right.
Yeah, I'm like, oh god, we gotta end this.
It's amazing what tickles your fancy when you've been in bed for 3 months. So
there you go. Very good observation.
Yes. So you guys ready?
Let's get it.
Ready?
Your turn, Ryan. Your turn, Ryan.
Today? Now, I'm wondering, whatever question we get, if Jeff's going to bring it back to RFPs, but we'll see about that in a second. Okay?
Oh, no.
Or 35 years in the business. Take a shot every time Jeff mentions 35 years in the business or an RFP.
No, I'm not going to say it.
I'm just joking, brother. All right, go ahead, Dan.
Okay.
All right.
No, we did this one.
RFP.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's all about RFPs. Got to get that out of there.
There you go. Irish coffee.
Stop.
Okay, this is actually pretty cool. This will actually be a pretty interesting conversation. What do you guys think about the cost plus model?
Ooh.
Okay. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of cost plus. Only, I think for me, only with asset options. I think it depends, right? Like if it's an asset model, then 100% cost plus because you have that agreement, you've locked that business down. For let's say you're doing brokerage options, I don't like to use it. I like to kind of give an all-in rate and kind of go based on there. The work that my team does in terms of the operations and customer service. I'm a firm believer, like, hey, I'm not trying to say that everyone's trying to get rich off their customers. No one's buying a boat in my business, right? But I think I like to deal with whole numbers and all-in rates. And I like to, especially with what's going on right now, market changes so much. We get the DAT lane data every single day, but how much of us are actually getting those rates that they're actually saying, right? And that's only on the spot rate from there. So for me, I'm not a fan of it in terms of using it for brokerage, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think for brokerage and asset model.
Yeah, we talked about this not so long ago, and I have a cost plus with one of my clients, and why I like it is that, you know, I'm not the transactional. I only go for the big ones, right? So it kind of makes sense. So everybody needs to make a dollar. We don't do this stuff for free, and we spoke about this in the past. So with the cost plus model, your customer is going to know exactly what he's paying and paying for what. The only thing that I change is on the fuel. I don't upcharge on that fuel. So if I'm doing a cost plus, it's going to be whatever the rate is plus the plus on that, okay? And then the pass through on the fuel. So it's kind of steady. So anytime that they give me those RFPs and I put them in there, it's all cost plus, because it's a nice way. It's a nice way to control, especially if you're on the freight bill payment side. Just think about it, right? If you say, you know what, I'm going to give you a cost plus 15% as a guideline, right? So they know any rate that comes down there, they're going to put a plus 15 on that, minus the fuel, because that's a pass through, and it's a lot easier to control. But to your point, Brian, especially with the way that the market's going, you're going to want to revisit that cost plus contract that you have in place, and you make that a point when you're having those discussions with your customers, knowing that, listen, here's the program that I'm going to put in place now, but in about 4 or 6 weeks from now, we're going to be monitoring the market and contract rates and all of that, and we'll get back to you and we'll have another future discussion on that. So yeah, I kind of like it. It really all depends though, but I'm leaning more towards the cost plus right now. And it's going to go up, right? Your margins, because some guys out there say, I don't care what we do, we're putting a 200 margin on that. Doesn't matter if it's a $500 lane or $3,000 lane, hey, that's your choice. But I kind of do it a little bit different, where they just know it. I think it's good business practices, especially. It's like when you have fuel surcharge sheet, right? And you create that fuel surcharge sheet and you give them out to all your carriers and you give it to your freight payment services. They know that every carrier out there is on the same program across the whole board. So when it comes in and they do their audits on the bill, make sure that it's right, everybody is like at 46% or 46 cents a mile, whatever it might be. Everybody's on the same page. The same things holds true on a cost plus program. They already know what's in place.
I'm a big cost plus guy. I'm a big cost plus guy on the brokerage side as well, with a floating cost. So what I mean by that is you give a customer a flat rate, $1,500. Today you book it for $1,300. You make your 200. Tomorrow you can't find a driver. The closest driver you needs $1,500. Now you don't make a profit. Now certain customers this works with when it comes to floating. Certain customers will say, "Give me your rates at cost plus," and that's it, and they want it. So you got kind of two ways. Right. I've always liked the cost plus floating, because if I have to pay $1,500 one day, I still make my 15 points on that 1,500. And that to me is important, because that conversation with the customer saying, I'm going to help keep you as profitable as possible, because I'm not just going to take any number. Here's our baseline and here's where we're going to try and meet. The odd time, if we have to pull somebody from outside the area, it's going to be more. Hopefully it'll be less, but I'm going to work that angle as long as you let me work the floating angle, because I don't believe we should do anything for free.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't believe there has to be a transaction. I've seen it so many times with salespeople coming into my programs, and I have a conversation and they're in a bad spot. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you one of the programs, and they never do it, or they do module one and then they never do it. And it's like, you call them up and you go, okay, listen, I'm noticing you're not doing. Oh man, module one was great. I learned everything I needed to learn. And I'm like, module one's just the introduction. You know what I mean? So it's to me, that cost plus model, transparency, shows the customer you're working for them, right? Like shows that ability to say, okay, I'm going to pull it all out of the market. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you what all the costs are. Because, you ask most people when they go to look and read those fuel surcharge tables and all that kind of stuff, they have no idea.
Yep.
No idea how to read them. They're like, what's the percentage this week? Okay, 35, great. Right? So it's these are things that I believe are essential in today's market. Now, maybe that'll change down the road, but in today's market, cost plus, I think is a key. And I've had a bunch of students that do cost plus. I turned them on to it, and they're getting more business and more business and more business and more business. It's you hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
Every single one of your companies are going to send a carrier invoice to a customer at one point. Right? It's just human error. And if they, and it's not even if you are, and I think this is the big differentiating factor, right? You have a $5,000 order, right? It requires calls every 4 hours. It requires PODs within 24 hours. It requires whatever it is. You're not putting $200 on that $5,000 order. Let's be realistic, right? You're upwards $500 to $1,000 is what you want, because if you have to make calls every this is manpower that you're utilizing. It has to be worth it. If you're hauling a truckload of computers and it's like $4 million in IMAX in a truck,
in that risk,
you're not making $200.
Yeah.
And if you are, run, because one loss will wipe out your entire year's profits. It's not just profit of the day. And this is one thing that the lawyer at the first company, amazing man, taught me. And when we were setting up Dell, he goes, okay, here's what you need. And I was like, I need that much profit on per load. He goes, Dan, yeah. Because you got to think about it. One loss, if it's 6,000 hours or 600 hours at this rate for lawyers, there's your profit gone for the year, right? So I don't think as salespeople we think about this enough.
Yeah.
So when it comes to a cost plus model, it's what is the commodity? What's the length? What are the payment terms? Like if your guy's paying in 120 days, my price is not 15%, it's 25%.
Yeah.
Because I got to hold your money. I'm in essence bankrolling your company, right? So there's all these different variables. But when that conversation happens, it brings out so much more of that human element and that transparency, that authenticity that I think most customers these days have been, COVID, increased pricing, people trying to just make a buck because they're dying or they're just trying to stay alive. Like all of these things have contributed to kind of a souring on people to look at new suppliers. If you look at sales in general over the last year, they've gotten harder. Right? It takes a little bit longer to have that conversation. People are less likely to switch because what ifs and what happens, and the supply chain is still fractured, and what's going to happen here. And people are moving from different countries, moving production, and so there's all this moving parts that I believe a cost plus stays in front of, and not to mention a cost plus. If your company messes up, which they're going to do, and they send an invoice to a customer, who cares? You got nothing to hide. That's my take on it.
Yeah,
I like that too. And just like a little bit of feedback too, like what you kind of said in terms of, hey, it's kind of harder to sell. And even for myself, I've seen that it's kind of actually the opposite in terms of I found like this past 2 years has actually been really easy to actually have conversations. People are picking up the phone because when somebody's at capacity, like a shipping manager, they're like, oh my God, I'm paying rates out of my butt or anything like that. And it's like, okay, well, that's when they actually start to look at other options, right? Because a lot of these carriers and a lot of service providers, they basically gave a rate and said, take it or leave it. And if you don't book this truck, I'm going to go find somebody else who's going to book this truck. So it was like,
and they
I
will.
won't say it's loyalty.
That's the reality.
Yeah, that was the reality of it, right? So I felt like customers are more open. I've told you guys on previous shows that I've had people that I've reached out to a million times, not one email, not one call, not a reply back, actually just sending me an email. Hey, Ryan, can you help me on this? And I was like, how did you get my email? I was like, well, I have you in a Rolodex, and it's like, that's what I've kind of seen. So I think with a cost plus, it's amazing for transparency. The things that you guys are both talking about, it's awesome to hear about the different levels, because as Jeff, as a business owner, Dan, as you're talking with your lawyer at the first company and things like that, for myself, who's an agent, it's like, I'm not necessarily, and this is completely honest, I'm not necessarily thinking about the risk, because as an agent, I'm going to get paid every single month anyways, right? So it's like, I don't have to factor those things in that mindset. And just one last comment that I really like about the cost plus is that you guys see the instruments in the back. And when I take music gigs, I charge my rate not based on the hour that I'm going to perform. I charge the rate based on the 15 to 16 years of practice, the hour of practice I put in every single day. My parents drive me to that. So you're not paying me. And when I kind of bill my customers, you're not paying me just like the cost plus or whatever it is. You're paying me for the rate that what it's going to take to do. Because Dan, as you said, a $5,000 order, how many times have we taken a $50 order just to put numbers on the board? And it's like, oh my God, you're up on weekends, you're doing all these check calls, and you're like, what is this $50? And then when you kind of actually do the trickle effect of it, 30-40% of that, it's like, why did I waste my time doing that, right?
And here's a secondary thing for everyone to think about. If you're a salesperson and you either have your own company or you're working for somebody, if you don't know what the cost of invoice is at your company, you're in a major deficit to start.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is I was sitting down at my last company and having a conversation with a pretty high up individual. And I said, let me ask you a question. What does it cost to invoice a load? And they said $70. 70. So if you look at that and you have, say, a P&D service going, right, where it's like one skid, deliver here, tough to make more than 50, 75 bucks on that skid, right? Oh, there goes my camera again. Hold on, guys. So it's tough to make 50, 75 bucks on that skid, right? And then you take into consideration, bear with me. He's coming back.
Yeah, Ryan is frozen now.
Oh, Ryan's frozen. Okay. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe there was a glitch somewhere. So then you look at this, okay? So then your cost to invoice is $70. Okay. That's your starting point on every single load. Like, as a salesperson, you have to keep your company healthy.
Yeah.
As an agent, you have to keep your company healthy. You have to keep yourself healthy. Like Jeff, as you're like you're a sole proprietor that works under, you're an agency under an agency in essence, but your agency has a cost to invoice. If you start invoicing and creating profit margins under that cost, eventually they're going to have a conversation with you.
Of course.
Right? So if we don't understand that, how can we put a number to a lane? Like, I work with a company and we did this experiment. Their cost was $239 to invoice a load. $239. And I said, okay, so here's what you do. Take all your loads, your profit, put in another column, do the formula to say minus $235. And that will give you every customer right now that's profitable. And this is the big part. It went from like black to really red, right? Black, we're bringing in all this money. We're making $130,000 profit a month. Red, didn't realize it cost us 160 grand a month to invoice.
30, yeah.
After everybody's salary, rent, and all that. So then what we had to do is look at what are the expenses? How can we bring those down? How can we add $5, $10 profit to each load to bring that up, right? But that's an experiment so many salespeople don't even bother looking at. They don't even bother looking at what it costs the company to invoice. And I believe that's the starting point. So you have that starting point. Let's just use $50, for example, right? So if you're doing an LTL model, you're not doing a cost plus, you're doing a cost plus minimum. So your cost of $150 plus your $75, because it costs you $50 to invoice, you're actually making $25 profit, right? That's the pricing model I would put into place for that. And I would put that pricing model into place across all platforms, whether I had dedicated, whether I had assets, whether I was brokering and on LoadLink and all these kind of things. No matter what it was, that's the way I would do it. And that way your margin never changes. You know, and for me, that was an easier process than sitting there and looking at a load you might make $400 on, and then all of a sudden for 3 months, because trucks are scarce, you're making $5 or you're making none. That customer, in essence, turns into a liability instead of an asset. That's my take on it.
Yeah, then you have to get rid of them. You have to see which customers are more profitable than others. And then we used to have a CRM, and we used to have this thing called Profit, and it was like a CRM, and we would register.
CRM sucks, by the way.
Yeah. We used to register the time that we spent on each customer to figure out how much of a return that we were getting on each one, which was profitable. You know, how much time were we spending on it to make X, but it cost us Y, to your point, right? And then we would just basically wash our hands and saying, you know what, we need to take our focus and push it over here and pretty much say goodbye to these guys. It's not that we don't hate them, but it's the cost of doing business. So you have to be able to separate them, because if just imagine the amount of time that you took on those lost leaders, as I call them, and focus them on the ones that are the winners, right? How much further are they going to go than where they are right now? Because you're taking that critical time and you're spending it over here where you shouldn't be.
You know, Jeff, you saying that, it was the exact question I was going to ask Ryan. Was, you know, where he said, you know, people are more likely to pick up the phone and then have conversation. How many of those conversations led to long-term clients?
Right.
Or how many of those conversations led to one-off, two-off loads? And don't get me wrong, the one-off, two-off loads sometimes work, but sometimes not.
I would say those one-off loads are really good if you have consistent business with a customer and they happen to get this one, they're like, hey, Jeff, listen, can you do me a favor?
Oh no, I'm talking one-off loads, like you're making sales calls and somebody says,
Okay,
actually, you know what? I got somebody that dropped the ball today. If you can help,
yep,
it's yours. You go and help. They already
yep.
have the incumbent. They just needed help for that day. You know what I mean? There's a difference in that.
Yeah. And then if you do a really good job and you knock it out of the park, that may open up the door and get your foot in there. It might.
Yeah, or it just goes
it's a chance,
zero dark 30 and
Right.
nobody answers your calls again, right? So I like the fact that you put in your time. I did that all the time, and I did that with a lot of my students. We had a big spreadsheet, and I said, okay, how much time have you spent on this? How much time has ops spent on getting rates and lanes and everything together? And I would sit down with them and I'd say, okay, so we're about to start business with this customer.
Yep.
Understand you've invested $25,000 in this customer. And they go, what? And I go, yeah. If you look at phone calls, right?
Yep.
You take your phone bill, you take your after-hour phone calls, you take your time that I pay you as a salary right now, you take the time that I pay people for the salary of operations, you put all that together, you're somewhere in the neighborhood, you've made 200 calls to this person already, you're in the neighborhood of 10, 20 grand. So
Yeah.
if this guy gives you one load and you make $200, you're actually in a delta.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that I say every salesperson sit down and start tracking this, but just understand if you make, simple math, if you make $80 a day and you work 8 hours, each hour is worth $10. If you have a half-hour conversation with somebody, they've just taken $5 away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If that half-hour conversation can't produce $7, you're in a delta. Right? So just pay attention to that. And that's why, again, I go back to the cost plus, because no matter what, I make my margin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You include the carrier invoice in your invoice. They know. But no matter what, I make that margin. No matter what, I understand I'm covering my invoice costs and I'm actually being profitable for my customer. Those are key. For me, that was key in business. Because you see a lot of people doing this P&D where it's $50, $50, $50, $50, $50, $50, and they're thinking it's adding up, but when it's chewing the back end, it hurts.
Yeah, definitely. And something, the way to figure this out is, and I keep on telling people this: go visit a traffic office, a prospect, and watch and understand what they do and all the touch points from the time they get that order to the time they pick that order, they stage that order, and everything in between that. If you're taking that off their plate and you're doing that, you're not picking the order, you're not staging everything, but all the paperwork trail and all the different departments that paper touches, right? There's a cost factor to every single one, because each one of those individual, and we figured this out some time ago, to your point, Dan, that it costs them X amount of money for each individual. Say you're making $50 an hour, but you spend 15 minutes on that, right? So you're $12.50 every 15 minutes. Now you go to the next guy and they're $12.50 and another one. Before you know it, within that hour, you're well over $50. You might be even to $100. Because remember, once everything is picked up, you get the DR, you send your paperwork in. Now you go through the auditing side of it, and the same with claims and mitigating that, because it costs X amount of money over that time that you spend mitigating that claim. And that's why I always mitigate and say, listen, let's agree to disagree that we spend more than $50 to mitigate a claim on a $50 thing, on a $50 claim. So you know what? Anytime a $50 claim is, just pay it. Just pay it, because it's going to save you money. It's going to save you money on the backside. So those are the different touch points that you have to realize when you put your margins on top of your base of your rates and the reasoning for it. And you can easily explain that to a customer, why it's this amount, and say, go ahead, figure it out. You should know that. You're in your role, it's all dollars and cents. And if you're not making that, you're losing. And you're doing something.
You can also push it back to, I've had conversation with customers constantly, where I say, okay, so you understand your per piece spend. per piece, freight has to equal X for you to be profitable. If it equals X, you're profitable. Y, you're not as profitable. Z, you lose. Right?
Yeah.
Same thing. Right? So you're gonna go to market understanding your metrics. And if we don't go to market understanding our metrics, I think we're in a deficit in the market. Right? Like it's just what it is. And I remember the days when new operations people would come in and everybody would be like, okay, so whatever number somebody gives you, we're going to take $100 off of it because they're going to give it to you because they know you're new, so they're going to charge you more. Right? Like it was this normal kind of thing in the industry. And when they got to know what was going on, they learned the metrics of the conversation, things changed. It's all context. And I believe wholeheartedly, every customer I've spoken to where I've said, I believe this strategy works because it helps keep you both in the profit zone. And if you have to spend more, you only have to spend it for 1 or 2 loads. Instead of me giving you some inflated rate, that's an all-in rate, and I might make really good money once, and I might break even another time, and I might lose money another time. But every time you're paying more, right? Like, imagine doing that when rates started rising. Going to your customer and saying, okay, I got 3 people. This one, here's the parameters. They want this much. This one, here's the parameters. They want this much. Here's the parameters. They want this much. Your margin doesn't change. You're just as profitable. Sometimes even more profitable because if you're 15 points on a higher paying load, because he can do it in the service time, you're more profitable. But bringing those options, because you're giving the transparency, because you're taking their perspective as reality. They can do the math. 1,000 units, I want to pay $1 a unit, and your charge is $1,500. I'm $1.50 a unit.
And that's why you, at least of myself, I won't go for like the super regional type moves because you need to put that profit on top of it. Let's say a super regional move is like $400. Are you going to put on $200 on top of that? I mean, seriously, because that's what it costs you. You're invoicing, everything still remains the same. The rate is low, but everything on the backside is still the same thing. That's not going to change.
But that would depend on the backside. So if the backside was, say your backside was $50, I'd throw $100 on that. And I'd say, this is what I could do it. It's $400 and my minimum charge is $100 for me to do the work.
Right. And you got to put
and
that
if they're not cool with it, that's great. You're not my ideal client.
Right.
You see, this is the thing, is this all goes back to that original conversation, is who's your ideal client. Some people might be thinking to themselves right now, oh, Dan, that's going to be tough to find. I mean, I love it. That's the way I would love to run my business, but it's going to be tough to find people that want to do floating, like floating a cost plus. Okay. But when you find them, they immediately become your ideal client. So just go find them.
Right.
Right? Like, just like you said, and you can say, listen, my company's cost to invoice is X. I need to have a profit above the cost. This is what my profit is. I'm laying it out on the line.
That's it. That's what you have to do. I mean, that's the best kind of conversation you can have. Honesty and integrity, and saying, listen, sure, I'll take it, but guess what? This is my minimum. If you accept this minimum, I'll move it as many times as you want. But if it falls below that, I'm not going to do that. You have to understand, just like you need to be profitable and you need to pay your people there, and your company needs to make a profit in order to stay in business. Well, the same holds true for myself and my partners and whoever works for me. I mean, it's the cost of doing business, and what's going to happen with that, whatever that charge is, they're going to build that into the cost of their units. Like you were saying, their pieces and everything, because they need like a cost plus as well, right? They're going to give you the retail and wholesale price, and they're going to up it because they need to make a certain percentage on that in order to stay in business and to pay everybody else. It's the same thing when you really think about it.
I agree. Ryan said his power went out, which is the reason he vanished here. So, all right. Well, you know what? That was good convo, Jeff. Love that. I honestly think for all of you out there, cost plus, go for it all the time.
Yeah,
customers know what they're getting. Everybody knows what they're getting. There's no surprises. There's nothing. You go to bed at night not worrying if your accounting team's sending invoices where you made $800 on a $2,000 load. I don't know. And some of you might say, yeah, but I like making that $800 on a $2,000 load. So be it. So be it. But if you're making $800 on a $2,000 load, there's only a matter of time before a salesperson calls and says something to your customer that's just too delicious not to act on. So just be careful.
Right. And they're only going to be in there for a short period of time because they think it's a win. But when they realize how much it's costing them to maintain and move that customer's products, they'll be out pretty quickly when they're not making anything. That's why they talk about the cheapest price, right? Dan has the cheapest price. Oh, I have all the cheapest prices as well. They'll go out to another one and another one and another one. And they're going to lose carriers left and right because there's no loyalty. And I tell them that too. You will lose loyalty because carriers are going to say, you know what? I give them $1,000. They come back and say, hey, listen, I got a better rate at 800. Can you do 750? It's like, see you later, man. You're just going to keep on doing that. The whole relationship. I want nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
All right, my friend.
Centurion Trucking, our motto is people before profit. Today's market requires more transparency, consistency, and focus on what our clients need to win. Centurion Trucking and American Logistics are poised to help their clients achieve and surpass their targets. If you're looking for a team that honors your needs, dreams, and aspirations, then get a hold of Daman at American Logistics or Centurion Trucking and start designing your career today.